I have a question for us each to examine today. That question is, how good a friend am I? How good a friend do I show myself to be? You know, there have been times in the past where I've been told I'm a really good friend in a time of need. That's a great thing for someone to tell you, but, you know, examining myself recently, I've determined I've become a less focused friend than most of my friends, well, all of my friends deserve. The trigger to what caused me to start thinking about this was that I'd received a invitation to a get-together to honor a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time. I had met Doug when Joshua and I moved into Boy Scouts. And it was, you know, he had been kind of a mentor. You see, when you join our troop, leaders aren't automatically allowed to be in charge of anything or to handle anything. Frankly, leaders aren't supposed to be in charge of anything. You know, the boys are supposed to be in charge. Leaders are more there to organize and to focus and to just kind of support. Well, like I said, Doug was one of my mentors. Him and two other leaders that I've talked to recently. And we had spent a lot of time together camping. He had shown me how I was supposed to handle it, because it's completely different than when you're a Cub Scout leader and you're doing all the work. We'd talk together at nights at the campfire. We had hiked. Like I said, I learned how not to do things by watching Doug. Well, we were friends for years. But a couple years after his son aged out of the Boy Scouts, Doug and I lost contact with each other. You know, we lived less than 2 miles apart in the same town. But I realized as I'm getting in the car to go see him, it had been 7 years since I had talked to him. And frankly, there were so many of us there, and Doug didn't have a lot to say. But, you know, we all got together and we were just telling stories about our time. You know, time spent together and some of the funnier things we'd done. Then we said a final goodbye. I've got to admit, it wasn't the first time I've let somebody drift out of my mind. It's easy to do when they're not there with you. Now, we all have the kinds of friends we connect with. Friends from our youth, you know, friends from work, friends that we got to know because of our children. And finally, we have our friends in church. Now, most of my long-term friendships have been in the church. You know, otherwise people are transient. They drift in and out of your life. Even when you're close, you're not walking the same path as they are, so it's difficult. Please turn to Proverbs 18:24. Like I said, the friends that stayed in my life the longest are from the church. The kind of friends you find in Proverbs 18. Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must himself be friendly, but there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. You know, when I look out in this room, I can see several people that fit in that last category. They're whole families and individuals that are missing. You know, people who were to walk in that door right now, I probably would even get down from here and go to greet them. Faces I'd be scanning to now to see if they could hear me well. Several people I've been thinking about this week, who I've missed since COVID started. It's a long time. But in some cases, how would they know that? So why this focus on friendship? Because, you know, A perfect church, and I know we don't have one, but a strong church isn't a group of wise, all-knowing, perfect individuals who are just on the edge of getting completely done. It's a community of interwoven connections that supports one another. Please turn to Hebrews 10:24. Picture a healthy congregation as a spider web. The outer framework of this could easily be referred to as services. It kind of frames how we know each other. Hebrews 10:24. Let us consider one another, provoke unto love and good works. 25. Not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as is a matter of some, but exhorting one another, is so much more as you see the day approaching. We're told here not to forsake assembling because we can't really do it alone. I know I couldn't. But how more important, how do we know to be there? How do we know to be there for others when we're not together? Within the outer framework of services, we have the different connections that kind of give us our strength. Spokesman's Club, Kids Club, Bible studies, small group Bible studies, individual groups like the 30-year-old males who used to be young punks that now have children and wives to control them. Excuse me, that's not in my notes, but without these groups, I have many friendships that would never have grown into friendships, or at least would have taken a lot longer to do so. You know, with Spokesman's Club, we refer to iron sharpens iron. The constant working together and rubbing up against each other with ideas and thoughts that sharpens our minds. You know, that's Proverbs 27:17. Iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the contents of his friends. Friendships and our interactions sharpen our focus and strengthen us in times of need, especially in times of need. Our congregation should be our main support, spiritually, probably emotionally and physically as well. This is why Satan would love to have us so widely separated, because then we can't support each other. We're unable to watch out and see where people need things. You know, this spring, COVID hit us like a strong wind and just kind of blew holes in our web. No in-person church to start with. No kids club, no spokesman's club. We're isolated from one another. Did we stay as sharply focused in our Bibles as we should have? Should have been easy to find more time with all the things we weren't able to do. Unfortunately, I found out I could still get distracted. Our technology is both a blessing and a curse. Right now, there are people who couldn't be here. They're not here physically, but they couldn't be listening without the technology we have. But it also is something that we have to control. To a certain degree, I found myself growing dull without my extended family. Then our congregation began to show its mettle. Due to our tech crew and our leadership, we got online services. Due to individuals, we had kids clubs meeting online. That was a tremendous thing for our kids. Bill's Bible study was a blessing when it hit online and we could all listen to it. As a congregation, we've regained some of our connections. But the job, unfortunately, is just starting. And it might get harder again. We can't let our efforts slack off. We don't have our whole family back together again. Like I said, there's still huge gaps. So how do we stay connected and support one another? We need to reach out to each other. The old phrase, reach out and touch someone, it still applies. It can get way too easy to get caught up in our own needs, our own issues. And I'll get to that when I fix this problem. So, how do we show love? Love, not romantic love, but biblical love. So let's please turn to John 15. In John 15, verses 12 and 13, we're actually shown how a friend can show love. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. John 15, 13. Greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Now, we're really unlikely to have to die for each other. But we can still lay down chunks of our lives for each other. Give up our time. Now, my wife is much better at this than I am. 99 times out of 100, if somebody has received a card from the Hauk family, my wife decided it was a good idea, bought the card, addressed the card, put a stamp on the envelope, and then asked me if I'd like to write something. She stays in touch with others better than I do. A lot of time, if I'm concerned about somebody, my first step is, hey, hon, have you heard about so-and-so? Because she stays in touch better. And by the way, that apparently is a male-female difference I have read, where females tend to, it's like when females are the ones that bring you together with each other most of the time. I need to get better at this. Even in the best of times, it can be difficult to find time to help others. Sometimes people don't even think to ask for our help. It's our job as Christians to be looking. This spring, I received the benefit of Brothers Love. I was looking at a huge project. And because of COVID shutting things down, I didn't have any work this spring. It was too wet and too cold to work outside. But since we have moved in, so decades, we have had this path, we have stairs going down to a path that goes to our deck. It's about 48 feet long. For decades, these stairs have been rotting away. Roots have been growing through them. It's just, my wife fell and broke her wrist, in this section of our walkway when I was at camp. So COVID shuts things down. We decide it's finally time to fix the walkway. It's about 48 feet long and drops about 3 feet from stop to end. So we built 10 to 12 foot sections, leveling down with each section, framed it out with 4x4s, cedar 4x4, treated 4x4s, and bolted everything down. It was in really good shape. I had started getting in some work, so I was doing this at the end of the days on Sundays to finish it out. But then one Thursday I came home from work, and there it was. 5 cubic foot of stone. In case you can't picture how big 5 cubic foot of stone is, think slightly under 17,500 pounds. My wife convinced me to wait till Sunday. I was too tired, and if I got home on Friday, she didn't want me trying to push to the Sabbath, and it was easy to do. Then Sunday, she convinced me to have breakfast before I went out to do it. And while I'm having breakfast, there was a knock on the door. I looked over, and there's a friend standing outside the door. I opened it, and he said, "I'm here to move stone." And this is someone I know has far more to do in his own house than I did on mine. But he spent all of Sunday working side by side with me, allowing me not to kill myself. There was a friend who was closer than a brother. A friend who had paid attention over the phone. And I hadn't even been complaining. I just stated a simple fact of, this is what I'm doing Sunday. And there he was. You know, when people get isolated, their needs aren't just spiritual or physical like we're just talking about. Sometimes they're emotional. I know there are people I feel a deep emotional need to see. Hugs that I need to give. Some of those people I have still not seen since the spring. You know, in person, you have a much better chance of seeing and knowing when somebody's in trouble or when they're in pain or when they need you. You know, it's easier for me to look out at you guys and see what's going on, you know, as opposed to those who are online. Can't see them. Can talk to them on the phone, but I can't see them. And so a lot of times it feels like you guys are masking your faces, so I can't see what's going on with there too. But normally, in situations like normally if a friend misses services, you reach out to see why. I wasn't here last week. I had a friend that reached out and checked in on me. But right now, that's difficult too. Again, Satan wants us to be separated. So much easier to look at someone or something and see their face and see something. The strength in our congregation, though, especially at this point, we do need to reach out and put in more effort. Lift each other spiritually, physically, and mentally to be there for someone, because often just knowing that someone is there looking for you is enough. You know, I'm going to leave you with one more proverb. Proverbs 17:17. A friend loves at all times. A brother is born to adversity.